let's just do get the ball rolling. Okay, again, big welcome everybody to um, today's session, joining us. And some of you might be absolutely new to Griffith University. If that is the case, I'd also like to make some special welcome to you all here, and I hope you are all settling in well, navigating campus and also understanding about how online study space works. If you are perhaps a returning student, again, welcome back. And I know we are sort of, I guess, almost halfway through to the end of trimester 2. So probably you're busy trying to get your assignment done and then getting your assessments done. So I hope the start of this trimester has been well for you all. And it's been quite rainy day, so I hope you all stay warm and dry as well. But I also want to take just a quickly short moment to just to genuinely thank you all for choosing to be here with me this afternoon. I know it's not always an easy call for you to actually make this time commitment in between your lectures and workshops and study. So thank you so much for making the effort and time to join us to work on your interview skills. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly. Oh, thank you, Belinda, for hitting the recording button too. I always forget that. Okay. Before we get on the way, I also like to make an acknowledgement of the country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, and I'd also like to pay my full respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. And of course, I'd like to also extend my respect to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people who might access this recording and join us today. A little bit of housekeeping, of course, as always, when we're running the webinar session. Feel free to introduce yourself into chat because I'm really keen to know actually what degree program you're in. And if you are international students, I assume you're all international students. We might have some domestic students too here. I'm just keen to see which country maybe you might be from too, because one of the good things about studying at Griffith University is really make sure we're celebrating cultural diversity here. Me originally from South Korea, so here's my heritage background. So feel free to just to introduce yourself in the chat, just what you've been studying so far. If this is your first year, second year, master degree or bachelor degree. So I just don't want to just get my head around on who we have got here. And feel free to interrupt me throughout any point of time from my presentations. If you want to ask any questions, you can type that into chat. Or you can unmute yourself and just say, hey, Mooney, I just got a question. So feel free to interrupt me throughout my presentation today. But also, if you feel comfortable, if you are in the right space to be able to turn your camera on, we'll also encourage you to do so, because today is really all about interview practice, which means that presenting yourself with confidence is quite important part of your employment success. So today is actually a chance for you to practice that. So feel free to turn your camera on if you feel comfortable to do so. I just want to quickly introduce how career mapping journey works. This is the Griffith University's career mapping journey we introduce to our university students to help you to build some kinds of self-awareness around where you might be right now in your career readiness, we call, and what action might be required further to progress into the next stage of your career mapping journey. So as you can see here, explore, plan, apply, advance is something that we often call. Just want to take a moment for you to just quickly read through to see where you might be right now, okay? And feel free to share that with me on chat. You know, Mooney, I think I'm explorer stage, I'm in planning stage maybe, apply stage. So feel free to tap that into chat if you'd like to share that among the peers here. The point here though, there's no such a right and wrong stage of this mapping journey, because each is actually a very important part of your ongoing journey. And also webinar session like today is definitely help you to build some tools around how you can actually move forward to the next stage with confidence. Yes, Belinda, my colleagues originally from Melbourne, Australia. Yeah. Okay. Before we dive into the actual interview session, I'd like to actually get to know a little bit more about the group we have here a little bit better so that I can make sure that I offer this session as tailored to your needs. So 3 questions I do have here. Please take a moment to digest the questions and then be ready to type that into chat. First one, have you had a job interview before? Yes or no? Simple. When I say job interview, just any types of interview. It could be casual job, it could be volunteering, or it could be a part-time job. It doesn't have to be necessarily professional employment opportunity. So I just want to see how many of you actually had some sort of interview experience in the past, whether or not it's from Australia or from your home country or somewhere else. Second one, how confident do you feel right now about interviews in Australia? So on the scale of 1 to 5, 1 is highly confident. Okay, so maybe you might want to type that specific number into chat so that I can get a sense of where you might be right now. Lastly, when you are thinking about job interview or interviewing in general in Australia, what is the one word that comes to your mind? Okay. I'm just going to pause 20 seconds to give you time to think about it and type that into chat. And I want everybody actually make an effort to type that into chat so that I can make sure that I customize this session for you. I can see already a few students start typing in, right? And welcome, Royal. Thank you for introducing yourself. You're an international student from India. You're currently enrolling Master of Financial Crime Investigation. Interesting. Yeah. This is quite interesting, promising emerging sector, certainly in Australia job market. It's great to know about your study background. Yeah, Belinda, thank you for contributing, Belinda, my colleague, appreciate it. Yeah, of course you had a job interview. And question number 2, how confident do you feel about interview? Number 2, yeah, nerve-wracking, of course. Yeah, when we think about the interview, you know, the first things as a human being, we feel like, okay, I'm anxious or I'm a little nervous about it. Having nerves, by the way, is very normal. And today's session is also help you around the strategy around how you can actually overcome that nervousness, which we're going to practice today. Yeah, Michaela. Yes, you had a job interview. Yeah, great to know. Feel free to maybe type that into chat if you want to just briefly give me some information about what that interview was about. I'm just curious. Number 2, okay, fairly confident. Yeah, there's a common themes here. Yeah, as my colleague Belinda mentioned as well, nerve-wracking. There's sort of the immediate feelings that you actually sort of emerge, hey, when you're thinking about interview. I'm just gonna wait for another few seconds. I can see Jenna Tool also typing in. Nope, you don't have an interview yet. Right, that you are in the right session and we can help you on what to expect in the job interview. Yeah, number 1. Yeah, that's a quite important point. I'm glad that one word, unprepared. Yes, so we're going to also talk about, okay, preparation, why preparation is so important, how they can also benefit you to actually perform really well in the interview. Okay, thank you for those contributing to the chat. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to type into chat, feel free to continue to do so I can also keep monitoring the chat function here as I go through. Okay. If I can just quickly work my mouse, so I can move on to the next slide. Oopsie. Okay. The reason why I wanted to spend time to offer today's session to you all here, me as a career counselor, certainly my colleagues Belinda also have seen these cases a lot as well. One thing that we constantly hear from students who come to see us for careers appointment, often students say, you know what, Mooney, I just had a job interview in the past and that I feel so bad because I feel like I didn't really perform really well. I think because English was my second language. Whilst, of course, that improving English is always valuable, and I want you to continue to work on that, if English is your second language, by the way. But employers are actually not looking for just perfect English or perfect grammar in interview situation. What really even makes a big difference in you is actually your mindset and confidence and also preparation, as Jeanette mentioned about the unpreparedness. So how can you actually make sure we prepare here? So if you can actually show these qualities For example, during the interview, before every interview, you prepare. When I say prepare, you actually research about the company to really better understand about what they're doing, their value, their visions, how they can align with you. And then you are able to just to clearly demonstrate your skills and how they can actually align with what they're looking for. Even if it's just simple grammar, simple language, you will be able to make yourself stood up to that, okay? Things like what matters the most, though, like in addition to that, my point here, being able to show your confidence. We're going to also practice the how can you boost the confidence and self-awareness around who you are in terms of your values, what skills you are going to bring to the table when you're applying for that certain jobs, okay? And also, not just only that job-related skills, but also being able to communicate whole sorts of other transferable skills you may have already built from volunteering or even the customer service jobs and so on like that. And simply also demonstrating that you have good understanding about how generally Australian workplace works is also one thing that Australian employer highly value from international student candidates. Practicing responses, not perfect English. Okay, that's the last point I want to mention here. Okay, so at the end, by end of this session, what I want you to do, I really hope you walk away with practical tools you can apply in your very next interview you might have in the near future. That also includes how to handle some kinds of cultural differences you may experience in job interview situations. And some of the ways that you can actually make an excellent first impression is also a big part of your interview performance. And some strategies around how you can best prepare your answer to relevant questions. Importantly, how you can build confidence and recognize your strengths. Okay, that's what we're going to focus on. Okay, I wanted to quickly invite you just to understand some of the latest trends around job interview in Australia job industry. Interview process have been changing rapidly, especially the last few years post-COVID situation here. Online job interview nowadays are very, very, very common. Even for me, how I got my current job was actually through online interview. A few years ago, there was a massive flood happening in Brisbane, so many people lost their electricity and the connections. And also, I wasn't able to physically travel to the job interview situation. So online interview was the case that I actually had the interview for this job. There's an example here. And also, you may have heard about this one, which is called chatbot. Chatbot interview is also known as AI power screening. It's very nowadays emerging automated interview process that can be used by some companies. So there's AI person, AI asking questions, and then you engage with AI to be able to present your answer to the questions here. And some big companies actually start adapting these types of tools because it's quite effective for them, especially when they have to do some large bulk procurement process. So there you go, there's an example. Another one, email saying, click these links to book your interview. You may actually have some real human being contacting you, say, hey, congratulations, you made a progress into the interview. But that might not be necessarily always the case. You may actually get some standard or automatic email, and they say you have to click the link, which will lead you to several options of the spots that you will be able to book. Which is very standard process, especially if you're looking for some big graduate program and applying for some large organizations or recruitment opportunities. Bigger expectation, you will understand the company and the role. Absolutely. When we are speaking to many graduate hiring managers and employers, one of the number one things they constantly say to us, we really want to see if students who graduate are able to demonstrate how much they actually understand about this role and the company they're applying for. As employer, will always also research you. Your branding is the important part of that. Actually, people will may be able to Google you or even try to search your LinkedIn profile. So especially when you start preparing your career as a student, have a think about it, how you can actually start create your online presence as well. Okay, so first things first, we're going to talk about how to prepare for a job interview. So let's quickly take a look at what you can do to best prepare for your job interview. question for you. I want you to type that into chat here. Okay. Be ready for your chat function. How long do you think it will take for you to establish first impression? When you walk into the interview room, for example, meet the interviewer, how long do you think it'll take to establish a first interview? 1 minute? 2 seconds? 3 seconds? Yeah, 1 to 3 minutes. Anyone else? Can see Michaela's typing in. I'm very interested to see what you're saying here. And I want you to use the imagination, because this is what's going to happen when you're actually doing the interview. But the time when you walk into the room, or even if it's an online interview, by the time you hit the join in button and then you start seeing people's camera screens there. 30 seconds. Yeah, yeah. It's actually in the research shows that if you within the first actually 7 seconds of the meeting, yes, 5 seconds, you're close. Yeah, Rolly. Yes, close. Yeah, yeah. You might be a little bit shocked right now. It's actually 7 seconds of meeting. So people will have a really quite solid impression of who you are and sort of start judging, I guess, your traits and characteristics within that 30 seconds of the meeting, according to the latest research shows that. So the question to you though, what can you actually do about it to make the really good, impressive first impression during your job interview? So that's the little bit of opening questions here. Yeah. The first thing is actually how you dressed up is something that you want to also think about it. So when preparing, also one of the fundamental things is actually what to wear. Okay. So it's always better to actually be overdressed rather than underdressed. And some students also often ask questions around, okay, I absolutely have no idea what to wear. Do I have to wear a formal suit or do I need to, is it okay if I wear jeans? Does that look casual? One thing that I want you to do, you might also need to do a little bit of further research to actually understand what types of dress code might be normal in your chosen industry or role. Simple thing that I often do though, I sort of look at their website or maybe even their Facebook page if they do have any social media presence or LinkedIn presence to see if their staff member group photo. That's going to give you quite clear understanding about how they actually dress up in their daily professional day-to-day basis in their chosen organization in the sector. That might give you a little idea. And also, even just as simple as, a little bit of grooming, you make sure that you have neat hair, make sure you have some clean fingernails, or also even just to make sure there's no little obvious stains in your clothes like that. So it's also things that you might want to think about before you get into the interview situation. Okay, so making a strong first impressions. Another point that I want to make here, actually make sure you show your punctuality is really important things to hear. A lot of people tend to underestimate about this one too. So make sure you arrive on time. If it's online, whether or not it's online or in person. And also we're talking about dress appropriately here. Feel free to type that into chat if you do have any further question about the dress part of that, what to wear. So I'm happy to answer to your questions here. And yeah, we're also talking about the power of non-verbal language. It's very important here. It plays a big part of your interview performance indeed. Great. Greeting with a smile and making eye contact. I know I have seen lots of multicultural background clients often come to see me. Mooney, actually, naturally, intrinsically, making eye contact is just not natural for me. So it may actually require further practice you need to do. So in Australia, making eye contact is actually important part of demonstrating how confident you are. But also we're talking about making first impression. It really helps you to showcase yourself that you are trustworthy. It's a really way to build rapport, trust, and relationships. Okay. Handshake. Handshake is very normal things to do in the professional job interview situation in Australia. Um, I had a really interesting questions last year when I was running this same interview sessions last year here at Nathan campus. I had one student walk up to me, Muni, from my cultural background, me as a female, suggesting handshake first is not actually norm. So in this case, what should I do? So whether or not you're female, you're junior, senior, doesn't really matter in Australian professional field. So the fact that you are able to extend your hand first and suggesting handshake is actually a very great way to show your confidence, your excitement that you're ready for this interview. So if it's a little bit out of your comfort zone, I really strongly encourage you to give it a try and practice. What else I missed here? Yeah, start with polite and positive opener. I know some of you may have difficulty to practice some small talk, so maybe even think about one or two your go-to sentences that you're going to play and utilize in your future job interview. Even simple as, you know what, oh my God, I'm glad that I was able to make it on time here. I thought that I was worried about I might not be able to find the car park. So lucky that I was able to find the car park. Or even simple as, thank you so much for giving the time to interview with me. I'm really excited. Or just tell them you're nervous, but you're willing to give it a try. So these can be typical examples of a little bit of small talk that you can actually play around. Okay. So to help you to actually practically practice conversation starter, small talk, I did put together some examples that you might want to consider as a way to break the ice. So some of the recommended simple conversation starters: how are you today? Or I'm so excited to meet you. Or like I mentioned earlier, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today, showing your gratitude. And another way, I appreciate it being considered for this role. I'm really looking forward to having this interview with you today. I'm so glad that I'm here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to learn more about this role in your team. Okay. You don't have to stick to all these 4 suggestions here. Maybe pick and choose the one that works best for you, and then that make it sound natural to you. And here is one typical name dilemma. How many of you have had this experience or have this concern in the past? Typically certainly my case as well. I had this name dilemma when I was applying for many different jobs after university here. So the name questions here, you may have this experience where employers not really unsure how to best pronounce your name if they're not really familiar with the name that came from maybe different cultural background. So in this case, what you might want to do, sort of the mindset you want to stick to here is that it's actually okay if they ask you how to pronounce your name. If you happen to have this experience, what you need to do, you just need to give them a little easy guide on how to best pronounce your name. I have seen many successful examples from international students in the past that actually have really amazing example on applying the strategy before. For example, let's say that my name is blah, 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 but feel free to call me this one. My case, my real name is Moon Young. So what I often do is a typical strategy that I still use right now in my current professional life is that, you know what, my name is Mooney, but it's pronounced like moon in the sky, for example, like that. So that will help employers to remember actually how to pronounce your name. So just give them a little quick, easy guide. And also, if you don't need to actually stick to your real name, but what you might want to do, you might have some preferred English name that you want to be called. In that case, feel free to share your preferred name if you feel comfortable to do so, okay? Okay, I hope that helped you a little bit of addressing some name dilemma in the interview performance situations. Okay, here is some real case interview scenario that I want to share with you. Case example. Candidate walks into graduate program interview, Brisbane engineer firm. The interviewer must say, hi, welcome, thanks for coming. And the candidate, hi, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be here today and talk about how my skills and background can best to contribute to your team. I want to give it a try, okay? And I want you to actually keep practicing this one, actually. I know that normally if this is an in-person webinar, I'll normally ask students to put your hands up, they walk up to the stage, and we actually practice together. But I might leave that to you, to your individual time to practice. Or if you really want to give it a try, you can actually make an appointment with one of us, career counselor. You can come and see us having one-on-one careers conversation. We can do that on campus if you prefer face-to-face careers appointment. We do also offer online appointments through Microsoft Teams and also mobile phone conversation. Okay, so preparation, again, continuing here. Some of the pre-interview checklists that I would like to offer. Research, research, research. Make sure research the company and organizations. So what should I research about? We're talking about specifically understanding their missions, values, or some of the recent accomplishments or achievement that company might have. And also, by doing these types of research, that's going to give you really great sense of understanding around what culture that organizations might have, which I found a quite important part of your career decision making when you're choosing the organization here, how this culture can best align with what I have, you know. Also, look up the people who work there already and learn about them, especially people who are interviewing you. One of the very common things that I often find from students, especially for those who have interview lined up, and they want to practice, the first thing that I often ask them, do you know who you are interviewing you? And there's, oh, actually, I don't know. Okay. So what you actually need to do, you got to actually know who is going to interview you. Okay. So if they give you some information about the panel member's name and job title, that's good. But if they don't do that, you might actually call them, ask about it, and then do more further research to actually understand who's going to be there to interview you. It's going to be your line manager, or it's going to be actually a group of people who's going to interview you. So make sure that you understand who's going to interview you. And make sure you do some general, really basic understanding of the nature of the role you're actually applying for. For example, if this is like hospitality jobs, then have a think about it, what types of attributes and qualities the employee often want to see from you. Things like you're approachable or people person, good communication skill, flexible, things like that. Okay. And of course, as part of your pre-interview checklist, you got to start thinking about what sort of common questions they're likely to ask and then prepare, which we are going to do today for the second half of today's session. And for those of you who don't know what referee is the referee is actually a big part of the recruitment process in Australia. So make sure you at least have one good referee so you can put down on your resume or CV. Okay, preparations. So how do I go about actually prepare? Make sure you block off some decent time in your schedule before the interview so you can prepare, but also after interview. After you finish your interview, while you still have the fresh memory on how the interview went well, that is actually one of the optimal time for you to have some really decent reflections on what you did really well, what you could actually improve, and also start actually journaling and writing down the types of questions you actually got asked. Because chances are you're likely to have at least 2-3 interviews down the track. Or even when you are making your career transition, if you're going to stay in the same areas of industry sector, then if you can actually write down some of the typical commonly asked questions, that might be that's going to help you to actually get a sense of, okay, this might be quite industry standard questions that often asked in this types of role that I want to continue pursuing moving forward in the future. And when you are actually doing interview, before you go into interview, make sure you actually eat meal. And also make sure that you're not feeling too hungry and losing your focus during the interview situation. And try to avoid many fluids. Like, for example, my case, when I had my job interview in the past, I actually avoid coffee. If I drink coffee, I get too hyper energetic and then I tend to talk too fast. So I try to avoid coffee. There's my personal example here. We talk about dress code. Turn your phone on silent. This is also a very important thing. This is really basic professional courtesy you really want to stick to here. And take a deep breath and be confident in your abilities. Trust yourself. Okay, next one, we're going to dig into the actual understanding of different types of interview in Australia. These are quite common types of interviews that you're likely to face here. One is one-to-one interview situations. So this can be more relaxed. Of course, it's one-on-one situations here. And it's very typical for especially part-time casual role if you're applying for these types of role. And you still need to be professional, of course, be prepared as well. And panel interview is also very common things to do. So how the panel interview works is that you as a candidate is interviewed by a panel of people. So it could be 2 people, it could be 3, 4 people, usually 3, 4 interviewers. That includes your direct manager, and also it could be another senior manager from department you might have to work closely with, and maybe human resource representative, things like that. I'm just going to quickly move my mouse forward so I can see my screen better. Okay. And the next type of interview question is called group interview. Yeah, group interview is very common thing, especially in large organization. And for graduate programs, you are likely to apply for if that is of your interest. So, so group interview also interview and assess together by one or more people. And this also typically be part of the assessment center experience, like I mentioned about the graduate program. So you're going to be in the group, and then they might have some interview questions thrown to you. And as a group, you might have to discuss about the questions. You might have to present as a group, things like that. And lastly, video on online interview, which I'm going to mention a little bit more in my next slide. Okay, this is the video interview. So 2 different types of video interviews we're talking about here, online situation. One is a synchronous interview, and second one is asynchronous interview. So synchronous interviews literally means it's a live state. So you are actually talking with human in the live situation. So here, so asynchronous interview, which is called recorded interview. And this is also still very common interview process for graduate program if you're applying for graduate level role in big, large organizations here. So candidate answer same set of questions through automated interview, and then you need to record this on through your camera, and then you submit that at the end. Okay, telephone interview. So mobile phone interview is also very common. This can happen in many different scenarios. If the candidate can't actually, if they're unable to actually attend in-person situation, that could be the alternative. Or even before they even invite you to formal interview, they might want to do quickly just phone screening first, and then invite you to the official interview. So there are many different scenarios like that. But the challenge is though, when you're actually doing a mobile phone interview, telephone interview, there's actually a lack of visual cues or feedback. You're not actually reading the facial expression, things like that, which can make you feel a little bit nervous because you can't really access their body language, things like that, which I'm doing body language like this right now as I'm talking to you. So here are a few strategies you might want to play around if you are facing telephone interview in the future. First of all, make sure you actually double check the time so that, for example, there might be some different time zone, especially Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, we have daylight saving things. Make sure they actually confirm the time, double check is very important. And you might want to use maybe hand-free phone in the quiet place if that is a suitable situation for you to do so. And make sure you actually know their phone number. For whatever reason you missed the connection, you might have to call them back. You need to know about their phone number, right? And also make sure you know how to address their name is important, because you don't want to say, hey, sorry, what was your name during the interview? Make sure you actually know how to pronounce their name and practice that too. That's going to help you to address your nervousness a little bit too. And especially if you're on phone interview situation, suddenly what I was trying to do in my past interview performance many times is actually try to speak as slow as possible and as clearly as possible. And that's going to help you to also demonstrate yourself that you are actually quite confident in even the phone interview situation. So try to speak more slowly and clearly, as clearly as possible. And also when you are on phone interview, make sure you proactively seek confirmations And clarification if the certain questions that was asked to you doesn't make sense to you. Sorry, can I just confirm that? Can I just clarify that questions? And that's going to help you to build your confidence throughout your mobile phone interview. And that strategy also applicable to in-person and online video interviews too. Okay, I'm just going to quickly give you some details around group interview here. So group interview can also vary in different formats. It can take 2 hours to the all day, depending on which company we're talking about here. Typically, you may be asked to introduce yourself to the group, of course, and then you participate in some kinds of problem solving or teamwork activities. You might have to present this one to the large group, or you might actually need to do some role play types of things, or you might have to give some short speech. So having just really good understanding about the various different formats you're likely to experience is going to really give you some starting point. And next one I want to mention here. So when you are actually preparing group interview, one of the things you got to really think about is that actually what employers are looking for. Why Australian employer actually doing these kinds of group interview? What do they want to see? These are my top tips on understanding what you really need to work on to best perform in group interview situation. Number one, stand-up confidence. Even confidence, I mentioned, come from nonverbal language, smiles. You're making eye contact with other people who are in this group interview situation, and then make sure you speak slowly and using your clear voice is also one other powerful way to showcase your confidence here. Second one, get involved and be genuine. What I mean by saying be genuine, actually say what you think, but also most importantly, listen what other candidates say in the group interview situation and try to invite others. I've been to many different companies visiting before with students and hearing about what actually top recruiters are looking for when they are implementing this group interview situation for recent graduate and student. They actually want to see your ability as a team player. What I mean by saying team player in this group interview situation, how much actually you're willing to listen other people's opinions and then engage other people. That's one of the most valuable skills they actually want to test out from this good group interview situation. So what I mean by saying that, how you can go about it, balancing, steering your idea with cooperation and listening. We all work as a team in an organization. So they want to see how much you're willing to work and collaborate with the other people. That's the one important thing they really want to see in this group interview situation. And also feel free to actually discuss your experience, when the group interview situation. Actually, from my recent experience, one of the things that I did is this. So this might be a really good chance to showcase your past recent experience and educational achievements whenever possible. Highlight your individuality. Don't just agree with the group. Yes. No, we often see some people, it's like yes person, I just yes to say everything. Again, that backs to the second point that I'm trying to mention here. Be genuine, say what you think. If you actually disagree with the other person say in group interview, it's okay to disagree. But how you might want to actually show your idea is just to showcase your communication skill. For example, hey, I really like what you say. What I'm hearing is that you're really highlighting about the importance of this. Actually, I might also have some new idea about what we can do about it. And then you can showcase about what you actually think about that particular problem that you want to solve here. Okay. I hope they give you a little bit of thoughts on how you can actually best perform in this group interview situation in the future. Also, here are some practical tips on things that you really want to avoid. Mention about speak too much or too little. Even when you speak too little, it actually gives sort of misunderstanding, impressions that people might think that maybe you're not confident or you're not actually passionate about this role. You might be very passionate about it, but if you're just talk too little or too quiet, then people often misinterpret your intention, thinking that maybe you're not actually genuinely passionate about this role, even though that wasn't the case. And also not answering the actual questions, really understanding the underlying reason why they're asking the questions. We're going to talk about the second sort of half of this session here. How do I actually understand the underlying the questions around that? And I also seen this online, some of the common mistakes from job candidates saying that I actually have no experience. You actually say the interview. And this is actually unnecessary because they had a reason why they wanted to interview you. If you say I have no experience, then if you don't have experience, then what you can actually talk about it. So instead of using the word I have no experience, rather you might want to focus on actually what you have. For example, I might have some transfer skills, problem solving skills, or teamwork skills that I actually had from my recent university group projects. So try to avoid saying things like I have no experience. That is not going to help you. And so just memorizing text, answers word for word is not going to help you because again, coming back to authenticity, you want to be yourself and show that you are quite authentic, genuine about this role. So if you're just memorizing, trying to actually bring what you actually remember, it's not going to help you to even build your confidence in the interview situation. And this is also a few, I guess, things that I've seen from students, especially for those of you who speak English as second language. You don't need to apologize for your English, This is not something you have to be apologetic about it. Just to try to still speak as confident as possible, okay? And also talking about not practicing your answer properly, of course, that the result might be you have a lack of confidence. Okay, here are some do's and don'ts in preparing your answers in the interview situation. For example, if the job interviewer asking about why did you apply for this job? And of course, do's might be, here's some recommended example, might be, I'm really interested in this role with your company as it aligns with my qualification, XYZ, and also certainly my previous experience around this one. For example, blah, 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 my background in the customer service in this company, this is what I did. And also your company actually particularly appeals to me because of that, okay? Don'ts, because I've been job hunting for months and I actually need money, financial security is an important thing for me. And this job is close, also very close. It's only 2 minutes walking distance, so convenient. So it'll fit me. Okay, I'm a little bit I'm a little bit exaggerating here, but hopefully that give you some clear clues on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Second one, what days and hours are you available to work? Do. My hours and days are quite flexible, actually. And I also have put my specific availability on my cover letter. And then you can just remind the interviewer that I actually written down there on my cover letter. And also, I'm currently full-time student too. So I do have some class commitments at university. However, I'm entirely free on Monday, Tuesday, and also sometimes on the weekends. I mean, if you're applying for some casual job where the weekend job might be one of the requirements. Okay, so you're quite clear. You give them clear understanding about what your availabilities are, the availability you can actually commit to. Don't. Maybe I can do Tuesday morning, but I can't do Thursday. Actually, I'm not sure about Friday either because sometimes I go out with my friends. I also have class, but I don't know what my timetable might be. You just don't want to give some uncertainty to employer, which make them hard to make some decision about hiring you. Okay. Again, I'm a little bit exaggerating here. Okay. Third one, what are some of your weaknesses? I understand one of the positive attributes of this role is having the ability to be able to use these software tools. And I guess I had a little bit of maybe entry level of knowledge about using this. However, from my university recent study assessment, I was able to quickly learn a little bit more about how I can best utilize this work, Microsoft 365. And also, I'm really willing to even build my competence even further when I get this job. So you can talk about your weakness. I mean, this is not really weakness, something that you want to improve on. So just the point here is to your willingness to work on your weakness is what employers want to see. Don't. I don't really have any real weakness, really. Do you really? As all human beings, we have some flaws. Let's admit that. Of course, we have strengths, but we also have some weakness too. So maybe I guess I hate working with people who have ego or saying I'm a perfectionist. Okay, here are some don't things. I'm just giving you some dramatic examples here. Last one. Do you have any questions for us? Yes, I do have 2 questions. I was hoping to ask if the time's allowed to do so. Okay, and then you can talk about some questions here. Don't. What does your actual company do? which is very silly mistake you're making, right? You're actually supposed to know about what they're doing before you get into the interview. But often you might say, okay, I don't actually have any further question at this point of time. It's actually one of the big mistakes that you want to avoid here. Do you really have genuine interest in this company? You may actually have at least one or two questions. So we're going to quickly touch on the what to ask as well throughout this presentation. I also want to quickly mention about how to communicate your working right visa conditions. The point here is actually make it very clear, easy for employers. So make sure you do your homework, knowing what your plans are, even simple as understanding your working rights here. Okay, here's an example. Your potential employer might ask you, Jesse, okay, so can you just tell me about your current visa condition to apply for this role? Example A, student candidate A, I know I can work right now, but I'm not really sure about how many hours. So clearly this student didn't do homework to understanding that her working rights. Whereas candidate example B, I'm on student visa at the moment, which means that my working right, I will be able to work up to 48 hours fortnightly. During my study break, I can also work full-time unrestrictedly. Moving forward, here's my plan too. I'm willing to apply for graduate, it's called postgraduate visa. And then this visa will allow me to work full-time, blah, 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 okay? So here is the very distinctively different answer on A and B. Okay, I'm not going to go too much detail about this knowing your working right, but I'm going to share this presentation as your reference point. So make sure you understand your working right, which is the essential part here. Where to get help if I really want to understand about my working right, or if you need some further help, these are really great support and resources that you can start with first. Again, I'm going to share these slides with you. Last point that I'm to make sure here, we are almost moving toward the end of session, but we're going to talk about actually understanding questions and how to answer to the questions here. Underlying questions. When interviewer asking you questions, the underlying questions here, why are you here? What can you do for us? What kinds of person are you? What distinguishes you from others? That's basically what they want to figure out by asking whole different types of interview questions to you. So one of the typical, very common types of interview question you're likely to experience, typically at the beginning of interview question normally, which is called open questions. Literally, the question you can't just say yes or no. For example, tell me about yourself. Well, why did you apply for this role? What is your strengths and weakness? So here is example on how you might want to prepare the open-ended questions. For example, tell me about yourself. So fundamentally, this question is really about what do you want interviewer to remember about you? Okay, so answering this open question effectively is going to give you some power again to make really good first impression. Okay, and that's going to help you to set the tone and structure the rest of the interview you are actually having in that moment. What you shouldn't do, too personal. I was born in Korea and lived there, and then I moved to Seoul, and then I have two siblings, my grandmother, I have cat and dog. Too personal, right? Things like that. It's really about focusing on your recent experience, your current situation, and also maybe highlighting, summarizing your resumes, focusing on your key achievement and skill set, and how they can align with the job that you're applying for. So that's the, this is what you shouldn't do. And second type of question you're likely to experience, especially if you're looking for a graduate role, they're going to ask you more deeper questions by using behavior questions technique. For example, tell me about time when you did X, Y, Z. For example, tell me about time when you have to work as a team. Tell me about time when you have to complete many different priorities. Tell me about time when you use initiative to solve problem. These behavior questions is actually very common because they haven't experienced working with you. But they actually want to know about how you are likely to perform based on the example that you are actually presenting in these interview questions and answer. Okay, so it's important to understand about these behavior questions too. I do have some example that I'm going to showcase to you here on how to structure your answer to this behavior types of question, which is using this framework we often call STAR. You may have heard about the STAR technique. We found that this is one of the most effective frameworks that people still use as a job candidate. They still practice this, using these frameworks to practice the interview here. So as we're talking about situations, you want to describe the situation you are in. So if you can invite me so I can picture the situation, even if I wasn't there, then you are having a really good starting point. And then you're straight into the talking about task. So in this situation, one of my tasks I was responsible for, blah, 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 blah. And you also might want to mention about some certain challenge. In this role, one of the biggest challenge that I was facing was blah, 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 blah. Maybe it was very short deadline, or because we have many teams who have been involved, we have many disagreement about that. What was actually the challenge issues that you're facing, you know? And for you to best tackle the situation, what was your action? How you actually did about that? What was your unique approach to be able to actually address the challenges? It's because you use your teamwork skills, because you demonstrate your leadership, you took some initiative to address certain problems. And by doing that, based on your experience, what was the actual result out of that? You know, the result might be simply talking about some key achievement out of the action you did, or did you help contributing the team's positive outcome? It's because you got some really good positive feedback from your supervisor, things like that. Example, describe a time when you work as a team situation. Yes, thank you for your question. So in my recent university project, I was actually leading the group of the 4 students here. And the project was really about developing the idea of the mobile phone application, blah, blah, blah. And the task that everyone studied remotely online. So one of the biggest challenges that we face here to be able to host the face-to-face group meeting. And furthermore, our team was very under pressure due to very limited time frame to complete this project. The preparation include this, and this. In this situation, problem, the action for me to best achieve this project, what I actually did is I actually took initiative further by creating online group chat among the 4 peers here. And I also was able to organize weekly catch up with my team member, which actually helped us to determine the key concept of this project to start with that gave us momentum. I also arranged some guests from industry people who are actually expert in this field. And I was able to get some really good insight to help us to tackle this group project. The outcome result was fantastic. This initiative actually helped the team to utilize some of the wonderful ideas that we gathered so far. And they also me by leveraging this professional connection from the industry experts, I was able to pitch this idea. Okay. For example. Okay, last types of interview question here. Also, you're likely to face the interview question, which is called situational, or in other words, hypothetical question. For example, what would you do if this happened? Okay, so by giving a job seeker a hypothetical situation like that, interviewer actually wants to see how they will react in that moment. Okay. In this question, there's no actually right and wrong answer for that, but the good answer might be you be able to reflect on the process you actually use to address certain scenario. It will be the key here. Okay, so example, what would you do if you are given conflicting instruction from 2 senior managers? What would you do? Okay, what would you do if you found that you are unable to complete the task by required deadline? How are you going to approach about this situation? Predicting likely questions. Again, preparing the STAR story using the STAR framework is going to be really helpful for you to practice your likely questions, to be able to illustrate your key skills and ability that support the certain require the selection criteria you see for the advertised job. And also, be mindful of the in-demand graduate skill. You're likely to apply for graduate level. You know, I assume you're going to apply for entry level or graduate roles. After your university, we're not talking about you applying for a job that require 20 years of senior management experience. You might be down the track. So have a think about it. What quality they actually employees want to see from graduates, such as teamwork, communication skills, problem solving skills, and leadership. Things like that, which you can quite well demonstrate from even your university experiences. Lastly, we do also have job interview online modules and checklists, also recording to a bunch of different seminars. So I'm going to share this link with you after finish this session if you really want to master, even practice an interview in your own time. Last one, how to even wrap up, conclude the interview well. If interviewer asking you, okay, that's the end of the interview, do you have any questions? You answer, it's not going to be, oh, I don't really have a question at this point. Okay. But how can I do it? But how can I actually prepare what questions I want to ask here? You really want to use the time as an opportunity to showcase your interest and also knowledge by digging deeper into, for example, yes, I understand these roles, blah, blah, blah. Or would you be able to give me some quick information about what would be the top priority of this job? Or what would you expect this role to be successful in the next couple of years? You can ask that kinds of questions. Or for example, yeah, I'm just keen to learn about what sort of further ongoing internal training or professional development opportunity that this role might be available. That might be really good questions to ask too. Here are some examples here. Also, practicality. Make sure you understand the expected timeline on when you're likely to hear the interview outcome. You don't want to leave the room without knowing the timeline because that's going to make you nervous in the constant waiting games, right? You can ask questions about, okay, when can I expect to hear the outcome? Would you be able to give me some insight about the expected timeline for this interview outcome process? You can ask the questions too. Here are some other typical, some suggested examples of interview questions you want to ask the interviewer, I mean. Okay, after interview, what do I need to do after interview? Done and dusted? What should I do? If you still haven't heard from them, make sure you follow up. You might want to thank them. Maybe even after you finish the interview immediately, you might want to thank them for their time. You look forward to hearing from them, and also certain things they're really happy about, things like that. If you are not successful, what should I do? Should I just dishearten my heart and then just sad about it? No, of course you might be disappointed, but what you can actually do about it moving forward so you can actually be better at that your future interview. What I suggest you to do is actually politely ask for feedback on your interview performance, which can be quite helpful for you. You actually want some candid feedback from interviewer, not just, oh, this time nothing's wrong with you, we're just so busy, we just had another candidate. You actually want to invite interviewer to tell you the truth of what you can actually do, be better. If you're successful, these are the typical process that you need to consider in mind. You get the offer of employment in writing, and you are accepting the role, and the things that you need to consider when you're actually accepting the written offer of a letter, and how the formal processing is going to work here. That was the actually end of the today's session, talking about what to expect in Australian job interview. We got 2 minutes here. Before I wrap up, I just wanted to also share this little quote, which is one of my favorite quotes. Your success will be determined by 5% of academic credentials, surprisingly, and 50% by professional experiences, and 80% by communication skills. So for many of you who are joining today with me, this is actually great news because, again, you don't need to have perfect English or perfect academic score. I mean, some academic score might be essential for a certain job, but it's really about learning the skills and how to communicate your values, strengths clearly and confidently. That's what today's session was all about. If you really want to practice your interview more, we do also have this AI tool, which is called Big Interview. So here's a little QR code for you to access. You just need to have your university S number, and then you can practice with AI. And also, I want to give you 1 minute here. One of the good things that Griffith University is trying to do for you is to actually hear from you, learn about what you want us to do more for your future career development opportunity. So give us feedback about today's session as well, but also tell us about what further career topic you might want to hear from us to help you. Okay. So if you have mobile phone right now, I want you to turn your mobile phone up right now and then maybe scan this QR code, and then I'm going to give you a few seconds to actually complete the feedback form. Okay. I'm just going to pause this slide to you. In the meantime, I might just open up here just to see if any of you have any further questions about what we have discussed today. Other than that, that is actually the formal end of today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. And I hope you enjoy your afternoon and for the rest of your day. And also, if you do want to discuss anything about interview questions, you're more than welcome to come to see us one-on-one career appointment with me or my colleague Belinda as well. Otherwise, I might just let you go and bye for now. Stop recording.